Hi, I'm Joel Kahn. I'm a triple board certified cardiologist. I'm at the Kahn Center for Cardiac Longevity in suburban Detroit. And we're going to get to some commonly asked Googled questions about a vegan diet. Remember, this is not personal medical advice. These are general answers, and you should always review them with your own healthcare team. Do vegans get enough protein? Plants have protein. Plant eaters and vegans get enough protein, and the science suggests plant protein is a safer source than going to the chickens, the beefs, the porks, and the turkeys and burgers to get protein amino acids. Plant-based protein can contain all the amino acids, those that the human body makes and those that are considered essential, and you don't have to worry about combining. If you're measuring your protein, there certainly are some world-class athletes that do take even more protein in than the general recommendations. Most of us simply do not measure it and can be confident because we do not see protein deficiency when you have a broad array of whole food plants. Is plant-based meat healthier than animal-based meat? In general, there is an advantage to plant-based meats and plant-based burgers, for example. You're going to generally have lower amounts of saturated fat, particularly if you're making these foods at home. You're going to have certainly less exposure to hormones, pesticides, herbicides, antibiotics that are often used to raise animals that become the meat that people eat in the community. You're also going to be less exposed to the risk of having elevated levels of advanced chemicals we now are concerned about, TMAO, new 5-GC, and actually an inflammatory reaction against our arteries that can result from these foods. Do vegans get enough iron? Well, that's a common question and a good one. When broad studies are done, the blood counts of vegans and the blood counts of omnivores are very similar, and clinically there is no predictable anemia or iron deficiency that a vegan will develop. But it's going to take a planned and diverse diet. You're going to get your iron from leafy greens and whole plants. You're not going to find much in the junkier processed vegan food. So always stress a colorful, whole food, diverse diet. It turns out when you combine foods rich in iron with extra foods that have vitamin C, the squeeze of lime, the squeeze of citrus, even the greens themselves, which are very rich in vitamin C, you absorb iron more efficiently. So it's always good to be tested if you're newly on a plant-based diet, if you've struggled in the past with anemia or iron issues, or you've been on a plant-based diet long-term of whole vegan foods. You can get tested for iron levels and your blood counts. They'd be very typically done at an annual physical exam, but there's no concern and no crisis about anemia and low blood counts in vegans across the board. Why do vegans take vitamin B12 supplements? There is a need for vitamin B12 that all humans have for healthy nerve function, for healthy brain function, for healthy blood count development, red blood cells particularly. So we do want to take in B12. The public's opinion is that animal foods are rich in vitamin B12. And while this is true, this is actually an artificial situation to some degree. Animals don't make B12. Bacteria produce B12. If we'd stop washing our carrots and our fennel and our beetroots, we'd eat dirt that has B12 in it, but of course we're not recommending this and we aren't going to rush to do that. While animals are grazing, they're eating dirt and they're getting some B12 directly from bacteria. The reality is livestock are not living out in the field most commonly. They're living in factory farms where there is no dirt on the ground and they're being injected with B12. So the fact that meat and poultry provides vitamin B12 is actually an artificial situation. The general medical recommendation across the board, though, is just play it safe. You might get vitamin B12 from some foods like nutritional yeast and nori rolls, but you certainly could consider taking every day or 3 times a week or a little bit of larger dose weekly, a vitamin B12 supplement. It's just a good and cautious approach so you keep the best blood counts and the best nerve and brain function. What are vegan sources of omega-3? Well, first of all, omega-3 are called omega-3 long-chain fatty acids. In fact, they are the only fats that we absolutely need for human optimal health. They're important in cell function, membrane function, brain function. They affect our cholesterol and our inflammation. And we do not produce omega-3. We need to get omega-3 from our diet or from supplements. Most people think of fish. Fish actually don't make omega-3 fatty acids. Fish eat algae, plants, that are rich in omega-3, and they concentrate that omega-3 in their tissue. Well, it turns out there is an omega-3 long-chain fatty acid called ALA, or alpha-linoleic acid, that comes from plants. It's very rich in hemp hearts, chia seeds, flax seeds, walnuts, leafy greens. Actually, those algae, chlorella, is very rich in plant-based omega-3. They're delicious and nutritious, and they're very inexpensive. You can buy them in big bulk packages. So it is possible to measure omega-3 in the bloodstream. If you have any concerns, a doctor could check that for you, just like checking a vitamin B12 or vitamin D level. Do vegans get enough choline? Choline is a nutrient that is important in brain health and brain development. It's not one that we speak a lot about, but it's come in the news headlines because of some criticism that a vegan whole food plant diet could be deficient in choline. Choline's very rich in egg yolk, for example, and if you're on a complete plant diet, you're not eating egg yolk. So it's not such an easy nutrient to measure on any blood test, but it turns out there are many rich sources of choline in the diet. My favorite is actually dried soy nuts. Soy nuts or soybeans have an extremely high amount of choline in the diet and actually on par with what might be found in egg yolk. The overall view of do vegans have adequate choline, brain function, brain health, memory, mood, depression issues, favors the idea that a well-constructed, colorful, rainbow-type, whole food, plant-based vegan diet is an excellent choice and will provide adequate choline. Is a vegan diet anti-inflammatory? Well, inflammation can be a friend or a foe. When you cut your finger, you want some white blood cells to respond and create some inflammation that becomes the redness, the soreness, the swelling, but it quickly goes away. What you don't want is to lead a life where you're inflamed every day, chronic inflammation. There are many causes of this, but a poor quality American diet, rich in meats, processed meats, cheeses, dairy, can all cause inflammation. And it can be measured by a simple blood test called the high sensitivity C-reactive protein blood test, or HSCRP. Well, there have been studies looking at blood levels of HSCRP in omnivores and in vegans. They've actually done this as the most formal randomized clinical study in heart patients at a university center in New York City. What was the result? The patients with heart disease on the plant diet had the lowest levels of inflammation compared to the standard diet, which was actually the American Heart Association cardiac diet. When you up your brightly colored fruits and vegetables, spices, whole grains, nuts, seeds, beans, peas, and lentils, you have the highest chance of a quality anti-inflammatory diet, and that will support long-term health and the avoidance of long-term disease. Is it safe to eat soy every day? It's absolutely healthy to include soy products in your diet, and I always favor organic ones, but I wouldn't eat them exclusively, and I wouldn't eat them perhaps every day in large quantity. Maybe one meal of the 3 meals, or maybe you eat 2 meals a day, could include some soy products. If it's a stir fry and you have a few cubes of organic tofu, that's going to be a healthy diet that's going to work out well for you. Well, that's it for this edition of answering your questions on this video. Please subscribe. It's been a pleasure discussing these with you from the Kahn Center for Cardiac Longevity. Dr. Joel Kahn signing off.